So yesterday, my wife was actually going through her grandmother's house to pick out things that her grandmother was getting rid of because she's moving, and she wanted to see if there was anything that we wanted to take home. And my wife actually found something that was really cool, and she thought that I would love, and of course I did. And it's actually her great aunt's Nintendo 64 collection that she had before she passed away. So not only is it a great, you know, memory and stuff to hold on to, uh, it's also just amazing to add these games to my collection because it's a lot that I didn't own and they're all in really good shape. So, first off, before I even get to the games, there's this, which is a game holder. I'm assuming, I think it's official actually. But the thing is, this one, there's a crack down here that I might have to repair. But other than that, it's in really good condition and it holds 12 games. Now, the thing that was cool about it was actually full of games as well. So I'm going to go through all the games that she got yesterday and brought home, and then I'm going to go through the games that I owned before, and I'm also going to go through the games that my friend gave me a few years back when he was getting rid of his old stuff. So I'm going to go through my entire Nintendo 64 collection. One cartridge won't be featured, it's in another room, and I don't really feel like going around and looking for it, but I'll tell you what it is. But yeah, this is my Nintendo 64 collection. I'm going to start off with the stuff that my wife brought home yesterday. So, starting off, we have Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards. Now, I've never actually owned a physical cartridge of this, but I did play it when I was little. We rented it. Me, my brother, and my sister rented it, I want to say right when it came out. And we beat it in one sitting, and we loved it. I played it more over the years. I owned it on the Kirby Dream Collection, I believe, on the Nintendo Wii. Really solid game. It's one where you can, I think it was the first one where you could take two abilities and combine them, and they use that a lot for puzzles and stuff in the game. So, really cool addition. Next is a game that I really haven't played, and a lot of people will think that's crazy, but that's Smash Brothers on the Nintendo 64. I actually got into Smash Brothers through Melee on the GameCube, so I never really went back and played this one. It's going to be interesting if I ever hook up the old N64 to see what this is all about. In the meantime, I'm probably going to try it out on emulator. So, next is an all-time classic and one that I never actually owned as a kid, Mario 64. And when I was a kid, I can't believe if it was my friend or my brother's friend, we borrowed it and we actually played through the whole thing, and we had the strategy guide to it, which was weird. We owned the strategy guide, but we didn't own the game. And we would thumb through that strategy guide over and over and just imagine that we were playing the game. Because we didn't have a whole lot of money when we were kids. But yeah, it's nice to finally have this in my collection. Next up is something that I have no idea what it's about. I'm assuming it's a music game. So it's Blues Brothers 2000. I don't know anything about the Blues Brothers, and I don't know what kind of game this is. But yeah, interesting little game. There is Cruisin' USA. Now, I've never played the console version of Cruisin' USA, but I did used to play the arcade back in Mazzio's Pizza when that was open back in like 2002, 2003. I would play that and Metal Slug, and of course I played Metal Slug more because I love Metal Slug, but I remember liking the arcade game, so I don't know if this is a faithful recreation, but I'm going to play it and see. Next we have Clay Fighter 63 and a third. Now, I've only played Clay Fighter on the Super Nintendo, so I don't know if this game is good or not. It's another one that I'm going to have to check out. That's what's really interesting about this collection is, while I have, of course, played, Kirby and Mario 64 and another one that's coming up, most of these I actually haven't touched. So it's going to be cool going through and playing all of them to see what they're all like. Next is Scars. I have no idea what this game is. I'm assuming it's a racing game because it's a checkered pattern. And then there is a missile right there, so maybe it's a combat racing game. I have no idea. And then there is the classic GoldenEye 007, one of my childhood favorites. Beautiful label. I have this game two other times. The other two cartridges are not in good condition, so it's very nice that I have an almost immaculate condition cartridge of GoldenEye 007. Next up is WCW versus NWO World Tour. Now, I believe this is an Aki Corporation or AKI Corporation game. They made a lot of really good wrestling games on the Nintendo 64 and onwards. The thing is, with WCW games, you had some really good ones like this one in Revenge. And then you had an okay one with Mayhem, and then you had the dog shit with Nitro and Thunder. But as far as I know, that's one of the good ones. This next one I have never even heard of whatsoever. I'm assuming it's a mascot platformer, but Buck Bumble looks interesting. It looks like he has a gun or something, so that's one that I want to check out. It looks like a game that would almost have like a cult following or something. But yeah, I've never heard of this whatsoever. And then the last two for the games that she brought home are two racing games, I'm assuming, Extreme G and Extreme G2. These look like futuristic arcade racers, almost like F-Zero. So that's interesting because I love arcade racers and I've never heard of these, so interested to check those out. Now let's get into the games that my friend gave me when he was getting rid of a lot of his older games. The first is Tetrisphere. Now, I absolutely love Tetris, so I also have a copy over here that I bought myself before he gave me this stack of games. So I own this twice. The thing that's interesting is I've never actually played it, so I don't know if it's like Tetris. I just saw Tetris in the name and I had to get it, so Tetrisphere. And this next one is another copy of GoldenEye. But what's funny is he handed this to me and told me it was GoldenEye. I don't know if he wrote this on it himself or what. There's no label. The back label is terrible. But for some reason on the front, it says 700. Not 007. It says 700. After that, we have Kobe Bryant in NBA Courtside. I don't know if this is like NBA Jam, like an arcade style game, or a more simulation style game. I do like the arcade style basketball games, you know, Arch Rivals, NBA Jam, NBA Hang Time. Courtside, I have no idea what this is. If it's, you know, arcade or simulation, I need to give it a try. After that, we have one of the Nintendo sports titles. Not Mario Sports, but the more Nintendo, you know, made sports games with Wave Race 64. Now, I like Excitebike 64 quite a bit. I really haven't played this one much. I'm assuming it's good, but I really liked Excitebike 64, so yeah, I do need to give this a try at some point. After that, we have Pokemon Stadium. Now, this is a game that I did play as a kid. We rented it from the store, and what's cool about this game was you could take your Pokemon from Pokemon Red and Blue and put them in this controller adapter that you could put your game in and transfer the Pokemon from the Game Boy game to this game and watch them battle in 3D. Now, when we rented this game, unfortunately, my sister transferred one of her Pokemon from the Game Boy game to the cartridge and then forgot to transfer it back before we returned it, and she's still heartbroken about that to this day. But yeah, Pokemon Stadium was a pretty cool time. After that, we have Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. I have never played this game. The only Star Wars 64 game that I played is Rogue Squadron, and that game is fantastic. But yeah, Shadows of the Empire. After that, we have one of the weirdest games in hindsight, and that is Pokemon Snap. Now, I did own this as a kid. We were all in Pokemon, you know, mania when it first started. If you were there, you know, you had to have been born in like, you know, between 91 and 94 or something to be old enough to really remember the Pokemon mania that was going on in the mid and late 90s. But Pokemon Snap was a weird game because instead of walking around and stuff, you're on a set path and you just go and take pictures of Pokemon, and then you have items that you can throw at the Pokemon to make them evolve or do different animations that you can then take pictures of that and get more points and stuff. Really strange game. But yeah, another piece of my childhood. After that, we have Gauntlet Legends. Now, out of the Gauntlet games, I believe I played the original Dark Legacy on the Xbox, I believe, and then the reboot Gauntlet. So I've never played Gauntlet Legends. I'm assuming it's a good game. I've heard good things about it back in the day. Like when I was a kid, people would talk about this game. So I do want to try it at some point. And then finally, we have a terrible copy of Zelda Ocarina of Time. The only reason why I can tell is if you look closely, you can see the shield and a little bit of the text at the top. But yeah, this cartridge is so ugly. So that's all the games that my friend gave me. And now these other ones are ones that I bought, I want to say, from like 2008 back. Some of them are from my childhood, some of them are from later, and I'll tell you when. So first off is Perfect Dark. I actually found this back in 2008. It was a complete in box copy with the manual, the box, and the game. All in really good condition, so I still have the box and manual somewhere. But one of the best games on the Nintendo 64 when it comes to first-person shooters, and that's saying something because this is the console that had Quake 64, Doom 64, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Turok, 1 through 3, and Rage Wars. And Perfect Dark is one of the best. It's basically a sequel to GoldenEye, but the thing is, there's just so much more content on this cartridge. If you don't have the expansion pack, then I would hold off because you only get like bot matches if you don't have the expansion pack. But if you have the expansion pack, then you can play a full single player, which is basically as long as GoldenEye. And then you can also do like a counter operative mode, which is somebody plays as the enemies in the map and you have to beat the levels while the other player's hunting you down. You had bot challenges for multiplayer. It was insane how much they packed into this one cartridge. And the thing about the game now is you can get it with Rare Replay on Xbox, so definitely do that. That conversion with the new graphics and stuff, it's amazing. So yeah, Perfect Dark, one of the best games on the system. And the next ones, I have the other cartridge in another room, but this is kind of part of a set. It's Turok Rage Wars, Turok 3, and then Turok 2 is in another room. Now, when I was a kid, I had Turok 1, 2, 3, and Rage Wars. These are not the copies that I had when I was a kid. I was dumb and sold all my games, so I can't tell you, where those are now. But yeah, some of my favorite shooters. I played these back when I was 6 or 7 years old. But yeah, Turok 2 was always my favorite out of these. And then Rage Wars. But Turok 3, what was cool about Turok 3 was you had more modern style with Turok 3. Now, I didn't get to fully appreciate it as a kid because I was dumb and I couldn't get past the first level. But with Turok 3, if you actually play through it now, it feels a lot more modern than 1 and 2. And in good ways and in bad ways. If you play the Night Dive remaster, you'll see what I mean. But it was basically a love letter to Half-Life. It almost feels like a rip-off in some ways. So if you want to play kind of like budget Half-Life with Turok skins, Turok 3 is kind of the way you want to go. Other than that, I have Turok 2 in another room, and then Turok Rage Wars here. The thing that's interesting about this one is with the cartridge that's black, you actually can't 100% the game due to a bug. And what you would have to do back in the day is mail this into Acclaim, and they would send you another cartridge that was patched and fixed. So if you want to see what the gray cartridge goes for, then here you go. So the black cartridge, $10 with, $5 shipping, and the gray cartridge, $550. So as you can see, I don't know if that's something that you would want to spend money on because it's so much money. But yeah, if you ever want to 100% the game, download the ROM for the patched version. But yeah, for me, I'm sticking to the black cartridge. After that, we have the copy of GoldenEye that I bought a while back. This is not the one that I had as a kid. But as you can see, it has marker and stuff all over it, scratched up label. I did not do that. Bought it in this condition, and it's unfortunately, I'm assuming somebody named Stan owned it. But yeah, one of my favorite games of all time. Next is my copy that I had of Tetrasphere before my friend gave me another copy of Tetrasphere. And then this is one from childhood, and it's Donkey Kong 64. And this is when we bought the Nintendo 64, we actually bought the bundle with Donkey Kong 64, so we have the jungle green see-through console and controller. But Donkey Kong 64 is kind of an interesting platformer because while it's good, I would say that it hasn't aged particularly well, because the way they did the levels is you literally have to go through it with every single, character. And when we played it when we were little, we actually 100% of the game. And I say we because me and my brother and my sister would take turns passing the controller until we 100% of it. I do not recommend 100%ing this game. It is a nightmare to do, but it's an okay time. Not nearly as good as Mario 64, and I haven't played Banjo-Kazooie before, but I guarantee you that's probably a better time nowadays. After that, this is Harvest Moon 64. Now, what's interesting about this copy is this is actually not one that we owned or we bought as kids. My brother borrowed this from, I believe, a guy named Eric, and I think his save file is still on the cartridge, and he actually married Karen, because everybody married Karen. And this is one of those pivotal games from my childhood. I would play this and Harvest Moon Game Boy over and over and over and over. So I love this game. If you talk to Harvest Moon fans, normally their favorite ones will either be 64 or Friends of Mineral Town. So yeah, amazing game. And then finally, Zelda Ocarina of Time. Now, I don't really need to say much about this game. It's awesome. Everybody knows it's awesome. The unfortunate thing is I used to actually own Majora's Mask as well from way back when it first came out. I still have the box and I believe the manual, but there was this guy that was staying at our house like weeks at a time, a few years, I want to say like 8 years ago now. And little did we didn't know back then, but he was stealing from us, and we didn't find out until he had already pocketed probably 20-30 games. So I know like Killzone 3 was one of them, and God of War, and all sorts of stuff he stole from us, unfortunately. So I don't have my copy of Majora's Mask. Oh yeah, he also stole my copy of Wind Waker. But yeah, that's unfortunate. But yeah, that's my entire Nintendo 64 collection. Sorry if this was a little more rambly. I didn't really plan this one out in advance, but this were the ones that I owned myself. These were the ones that my friend gave me. And now, added to the collection are the ones that my wife brought home. So now I have a very decent, sizable collection of Nintendo 64 games, which is funny because it's, again, not one that I wanted to collect for. I do have some nostalgia for the system, mainly for the first-person shooters on the system, and of course, Zelda and Mario 64. But it's not one that I remember as fondly as the PlayStation 1. But yeah, I'm actually getting a pretty decently sized collection going here, and I love having all of these that I'm eventually going to be able to display on a shelf, and yeah, share these with my kids. But that's all I have for you today. Like the video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it. Let me know in the comments down below if you have a game that you love on the Nintendo 64, or one that I should check out, because again, the Nintendo 64 library, outside of like the major titles, I haven't explored half or over half of the console at this point. It's one of those systems that I just never really got into after the 90s. So let me know games that I should play. And yeah, that's about it. I will see you guys in another video next time.